If Taylor Swift were to decide today that she was finished making music and playing shows, and from now on everything she create would only be for herself and be private, nothing else would be released to the world, a wave would rise through the ocean, rippling through the continents, and human lives would be genuinely and significantly affected. Other human lives wouldn't even notice a difference. Anyway, I made a banging curry the other day. You should have seen it. It was beautiful. Oh man. Davey Reedon is one of the main men behind the 2013 game The Stanley Parable, about corporate control, identity, autonomy, and buckets. Alongside William Pugh, he wrote and directed The Stanley Parable after it was birthed as a mod and eventually outgrew its cage. There are a very small few mods that are so successful and remarkable that they merit getting their own video game, and it's no surprise that these two minds were behind one of those that are in the Hall of Fame. A few short years after the release of the full, completely done, never to be added to again Stanley Parable, Davey comes back into the limelight with a game where he takes center stage, The Beginner's Guide. A very short experience that packs more philosophical debate, human nature, and emotion into 90 minutes than most games and TV shows and films do in their runtime, or any Southgate match. It's very hard and restrictive to try and talk about this game without spoiling the shit out of it, and this is a game where the whole idea of going into it blind is very, very important. I think knowing even small amounts of this plot can tarnish the experience that you go through. So I hereby do the unthinkable for a YouTuber still small enough to notice every single new subscriber and viewer coming in, and ask you to leave this video now and go experience The Beginner's Guide in some way, whether it's a YouTube playthrough or getting to play the game yourself. Just go. Go. Why are you making this harder than it needs to be? You need to go. My watch time will be fine. It's okay. Stop making this hard. You can watch this game as well through like a YouTube playthrough or something, and it's still a remarkable experience. Obviously, the far superior way to experience this game or any game is to play it yourself. But if you don't have the means or whatever, or you just don't want to, you want to watch it, then that's fine. I first experienced this game through watching it as a YouTube video. My Celtic brother-in-arms Spadicy was the one who guided me through that journey, and here I am talking shit about it. And my teacher said I wouldn't amount to nothing. Bitch, I'm at least 3. However you choose to experience this tale of creativity, it's likely to stick with you because it is a beautiful look at artistry and how making things just for the sake of making things can be the most beautiful food for the soul. Fulfilling and sweet, great with coriander and naan bread. Sorry, I'm still thinking about that curry. But just as much, it's a harrowing look at the soul of creativity itself, sharing that with people, and how with publicity comes duty, comes burden, comes the obligation of an artist. Welcome back to Megadeth. I'm back on my bullshit. Ah, shit, I might not have clapped. There we go. Right, so before we get into this, be aware that this video is definitely not going to be entirely about The Beginner's Guide. We're definitely going to be looking at it and the themes that it expels, but it's not going to be like a recap. Wow, the lighting on this shot is shit. My apologies. I mean, I did a full-on Jerry when I was setting up this shot. Don't worry, the angle will change in a few minutes. It won't be long. I'm not a professional, and if you get that idea, you are sorely mistaken. Picture this video as a chat as if we've just finished playing the game, you know? I'm not gonna re-explain all of the details of the game similar to how I did in the Firewatch one. I think I might have gone a little bit too far on the Firewatch one, but that's another thing. It'll be a look at creativity and the nature of making things, but it'll be talking just as much about the themes as it is the actual game itself. So if that pisses you off, this is your stop. You can leave the train now. Thank you so much for all that support on the last video. I'll get more soppy and bobby at the end, of course, but just want to say it does mean the world to me. But one thing I noticed is that a lot of you didn't seem to catch my Newport sarcasm. Holy shit, the amount of comments I got about garlic, IMDb, and Papers, Please. Fuck me, guys. I can't be arsed with anything and anybody. I swear to God, I use a more than reasonable amount of garlic in all of the cooking that I do. I'll prove it. Don't make me start a Megadan cooking channel, because I'll fucking do it. Why not? Don't try me like that. Don't disrespect me. And don't worry, you, Raven Scott 444. If I ever cook for you, I'll keep it vampire friendly. Gotta respect the cravings worth. So I've devised a genius solution that will solve not only this problem, but all of our problems from now up until the end of time. The sarcasm board. I wrote sarcasm on a piece of cardboard, and I'm gonna have my boy here hold it up whenever I need to signify that sarcasm has happened. Now, I know it's a tough concept, but I'm sure you'll get there in the end. We've got all the time in the world. It's a little hard to describe the beginner's guide and what kind of a game it is, because it isn't just one game. It's 17 games with an intro and an epilogue. Davey, or at least a fictionalized version of Davey, is guiding you and narrating you through this series of games created by Coda, a game developer whose games have had a profound and immense impact on Davey, but they've seemingly fallen out of contact. Davey tells you that he's put this collection together in hopes that the reach of the game goes far enough so that he can be reunited with Coda, so they can meet up, they can go bowling. I gotta give credit to Davey, not just for the fantastic writing of the game, but for the fact that he pulled out of his ass a performance that had me completely fooled. You know, granted, I'll give myself the fact that I was like 14 years old when the game came out, but his performance of this fictionalized version of himself absolutely had me fooled. I fully believed that these events had happened and that he was searching for this person called Coda. Very few games or pieces of media, for that fact, have ever managed to make me cry. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not a statue. God knows I do know my onions. Shout out Roller Coasters, The Last of Us, Wilson's Heart, and being Welsh, getting taught the story of Gelert in primary school, because it's a great idea to gather up some 8-year-olds and traumatize the lifelong fuck out of them before they go outside and eat Play-Doh.
Oh, mush! Back off! Who do you think you are? Don't you look at me like that, I'll do you fucking card. I said, oh, mush!
But for pieces of media, I tend to feel things more internally. You know, I can be deeply and emotionally moved by a piece of media while still having the facial expressions of Commissioner Holt. May his second death never come. But that speech at the end about Davey's own feelings and how he injected himself into these games in different ways really did kind of set off the waterworks. He really sells this performance as someone who is missing a friend, who's been moved by their body of work and feels like they're missing something inside of themselves. Perhaps most importantly, he comes off as really confident in everything that he's saying. It's as if he's got access to the head of the character that he's playing. In the blink of an eye, late in the game, the narrative gets turned upside down, and we realize that Davey has been an unreliable narrator this entire time. He's been feeding these ideas into our heads of what Coda's games represent, what meaning is behind them. Meanwhile, Coda has had his own ideas this whole time and has been feeling these ill feelings towards Davey that D-Dog decided to hide. Send that fucker to ballet. In the first 10 minutes of the game, on the second of Coda's projects being shared with us, Davey says this.
Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
Bless his cotton socks, he immediately goes on to tell us his own interpretations of 90% of the game and injects his own meaning into them, telling us what Coda was thinking while he was creating them. We have this natural urge to trust Davey pretty quickly. You know, he is this confident narrator that we're hearing, and he seems to have this rapport and this history with Coda that we clearly don't. So he's on that upper foot, you know. It's natural for us to just trust him. So when he starts saying these things, we're like, all right, I'll bite, I'll chew. I'll bring up some poppadoms and mango. Fuck, sorry. Perhaps this expectation of meaning in Coda's games actually caused him to, whether consciously or not, start injecting meaning into his games, when in reality, they are quite unnecessary. It's like heated steering wheels in cars or garlic in food. You're better than this. And so maybe it was just me and Spadicy, but when we get to that point in the narrative where it flips and we realize that Davey is kind of the bad guy, not really, but kinda, it hits hard. I think part of the reason it does hit so hard is because the interpretations that Davey did put into the games were really quite warm and lovely, or at least very human and relatable. We could see ourselves in them, and now we're kind of set adrift, and there's this bit of a bad feeling as well because we've been peering into someone's property that we should have had no access to. It's like peering at someone's personal diary or something. I'll try not to recap the events of the game too much this time. I think I went a little bit too far with it in the Firewatch video. It ended up being like 50 minutes when my aim was about 20, and I ain't got that time to spend on every video. I gotta keep things rolling. Some of you are gonna be dead in the morning. We're going to use Simon. I'm making this video not to talk about how great the beginner's guide is as a game or whatever, or give it a review. There are loads of essays about the game dissecting it, and there are loads of reviews too. I don't have 2 pence to add to that pile. I'm more here to just talk about the mental journey that it led me on and admire the themes a bit. I was revisiting the game more recently and couldn't stop thinking about this theme of how creation and the act of making things is one of the best things in the entire world, both for yourself and the wider world. And creations that get shared out into these public places can gather love and admiration from the public and the people who see it, which is absolutely great. But then afterwards comes something else that's not so great: obligation. This is one of few games where every time I play it, I think about something different, you know, a different theme pops out to me. And this most recent revisit didn't have me thinking about Davy's betrayal of trust necessarily, or Coda's creative spirit necessarily, but rather specifically Davy's desire to keep experiencing Coda's games and have Coda keep creating games, and Coda's total disinterest in doing so. This dichotomy is present from the very first game that Davy shows us, and it's present all the way up until the end. When an artist gets popular, as previously mentioned, Taylor Swift, you know, the greatest of all time. Listen, I know there's Swifties watching right now. They are fucking everywhere. I've literally just got this channel off the ground. I do not need them to destroy my career this early, thank you. Taylor's fanbase is, to put it kindly, passionate. Anything she releases, they're on it. Anything she's selling in the store, swipe the card. She needs to go to Waitrose. I got you, mummy, I'll fuel up the jet. A friend of mine was one of them. They battled like hell to get tickets to one of her gigs, and then for like 10 days straight leading up to it, was posting on all of the stories every single night, like, can't wait, it's this many days, this many hours until I meet my hero. And then after the gig, for months, like pretty much every night, it was like, can't believe it's been this many days, this many weeks, this many months since I've seen my hero, since the best night of my life. Like, I get it, but it's a lot. Yo! Some of these people have grown up with her in their lives and grown up with her music, whether it's made them feel something or another, whether it's inspired them, whether it's made them realize something about themselves, or even just cheered them up when they're down. This isn't a bad thing in and of itself at all. You know, it's quite beautiful to be inspired. We are all mosaics of everything we've ever loved. I got pretty inspired by Ed Sheeran's story, you know. I read a book about him, learned about the chances and the risks that he took for music, learned how he came up in the industry and how he makes his music with like the live loop pedal and everything. And that story in large part led me to go spend 3 years studying music in college. Looking up to an artist can be a really great thing, but then comes the next part. People attach themselves to artists as if they were a baby duckling. They need this person to keep creating, to keep feeding them. It doesn't even matter if what they're making is any good, just as long as they keep creating. If Miss Taylor puts out an Instagram post tomorrow saying that she's packing it in, she's done with it, she's sick of it all, she's getting on the jet and popping down to Pontins for a rollie and a few goes on the claw machine, again, fuel up the bird, then some people would feel devastated. They'd cry all week, they'd call in sick to work, they might feel personally betrayed. And I'm not exaggerating or living in fantasy land here. Do you remember when One Direction split? The fucking calamity? People cut their wrists when they found out Justin Bieber smokes, for fuck's sake. I mean, we're not talking about the most well-adjusted people. I love you, but Christ. Human beings can often put way too much stock into one particular thing, and celebrities are absolutely among that group. I mentioned Taylor in particular because Swifties, as they seem to have self-labeled themselves, are kind of a perfect example, with love and respect and a little bit of fear. I'm not one of them, but they are a very present and clear group to see. I don't think I could be that for a celebrity. Maybe David Larby. That guy just pops along every once in a while and reminds you that you should be happy to be alive. These people dedicate their social medias, their banners, their branding, their bedrooms, their fucking personalities to an artist. Like, that's just a bit of a mad concept. You think if Madame T came up and said that she's packing it in, that these people would be cool about it? Ah, no worries, buds. Don't worry, it's all good. I'm off down the Fox for a jar. But let's think about the artist for a second. There's nothing intrinsically, inherently wrong about a decision like this. The artist doesn't owe anyone anything, do they? There's nothing wrong or disrespectful about a decision like Coda's to stop making games. There is a billion reasons to stop creating. I mean, in Taylor and Ed's case, there's a billion reasons to keep creating as well, but you get the point. Plus, on top of this, the artist doesn't owe anyone anything really. But if someone's life is going to be in any way made worse by you stopping creating your art, is there a duty to keep going? Is there a burden? Is there an obligation to being an artist? Well, yes. Well, no, but yes, we'll get onto that later. Keeping people happy at the sake of yourself is a lose-lose scenario in the long run, every single time. If you're still creating, even when you don't want to, just to appease some other people, is that still coming from your heart and your soul? Are you still creating art if you don't believe in it? And even if you didn't set out to make art, you just set out to throw a paintbrush around and see what came of it, just to experience that indomitable childlike joy of creation, are you respecting yourself by continuing to create just out of a sense of duty? Coda's work starts off as these beautiful little ideas, some being minutes or even seconds long, but always having something cool about them, whether it's something, a little message to say or something cool to look at. And there being these things hidden underneath the surface that no one in the world could possibly know about except Coda, unless you tarnished his work, unless you started digging into it. And then, likely as a result of Davy's interference and his interpretations being added, but just as likely being because Coda was running low on fuel, his creations start to take this bit of a darker turn. They are all reflections of Coda in one way or another. That's something that Davy definitely gets right, and this reflection starts to become more and more concerning as time goes on. Coda confesses through his games that he's no longer having fun making these, and that he can't keep doing it. This seems to happen somewhat early on in our journey through the Coda catalogue of creativity and catastrophe, conceived and cultivated through community contacts for an inconsolable comrade, bars. Yet Coda continues to create. We've got a lot of games to go, and they do begin to spiral deeper and deeper. They're going more and more away from just having creative ideas and being more of these psychological examinations. One thing I've noticed as well is that as these games become more psychological reflections of Coda, they come out quite a lot less frequently. You know, towards the beginning, he's making a game every month or so, or even multiple times a month, but towards the epilogue, towards the end of the game, there's a few in a year. Maybe this is just part of the picture though. You know, it's a totally respectable headcanon to believe that this is just part of the picture where Coda has continued to create more games just for himself, and Davy hasn't been privy to those games and hasn't been permitted and trusted to see them because of his recent breach of the friendship. Coda knows now that Davy can't be trusted to respect Coda's art in the way that Coda is asking. He can't be trusted not to tarnish this, not to keep Coda's games as Coda's games instead of giving them to the whole world. You know, another Ed Sheeran thing, and I'm sure a lot of other artists have said this, but they mentioned that, you know, when they're creating a song, when it's in the studio, when it's being worked on, it is their song, it is the artist's song, it's Ed's song. Before Thinking Out Loud came out, for example, it was his song. But as soon as it comes out and it is given to the public, it belongs to those who consume it. You know, it could be their wedding song, it could be a song that's important to their lives and whatever, and it no longer belongs to the artist, it belongs to the people who consume the art. And I get that, and I'm sure there's that feeling for Coda where he loses this bit of personal touch with his games when they get sent out to the world. Maybe Coda did keep making those tiny little games and they never left his hard drive. Maybe he just learned his lesson. Tell one your thoughts, but beware of two. What's known to three is known to all. Okay, quick pause on the video writing thing. I've got to go put on a festival. Show us some moves. made it. We made it. My feet look like Hiroshima. One thing that's interesting to me is that to the average player, Coda's games make less sense in the early days and start to make more sense as they go on and as Coda begins to inject these personal feelings and emotions into his games and these messages. And it raises a question that had me contemplating, pondering, considering perchance. Do the things people create need to make sense? Need to have logic or coherence? Logic is something that's expected from us to be in anything that we consume, any media, any TV shows, films, whatever, and games. But if someone makes something that is illogical, it doesn't have any coherence or meaning, and it doesn't say anything other than, I wanted to make this thing, so I did, then we're more likely to consider it a failure, to consider it bad. But logic isn't owed to anyone. There's surely no obligation to the creator to provide a sense of meaning to the outside world. You know, everything ever made means something to someone, whether we are privy to an explanation or not. I quite like this comment from Jacksepticeye's playthrough video of the game. This game is basically saying the curtains were blue just because the author liked the color blue. He's not sad or in despair, he just likes the color blue. And it does encompass a large part of the game, you know. There was a comment on that Firewatch video I did last month where someone said, it was pretty much along the lines of, Firewatch isn't this deep, lol, whatever it was. And I was gonna respond to it, and I didn't end up doing it, partly because it's a naff comment, but it also, I was thinking for a while on how to respond to it because I both totally disagreed and totally understood. Anything, any piece of media is as deep or as shallow as we make it out to be. Your perception of something can be completely different to mine. You know, you can experience something in a completely different way, even if it is the exact same something. And because your perception is different to mine, you know, how is one valid and the other one isn't? The closest thing that we can get to a correct meaning or a correct interpretation is in the mind of the creator. But if the creator doesn't have a meaning in their own mind, then how can any of our intentions and any of our meanings that we took from it be invalid? And is it morally right of the creator to impose a one singular correct meaning in their art? You know, all right, that's a whole murky waters situation. Let's not get into that. You hear this phrase a lot, separating the art from the artist. But it only ever really comes up when the artist in question has been outed as a paedophile or something. I never really see it used in a more positive light, where you are injecting something into this creation, this piece of art, that the artist didn't originally put there. The artist could supply the recipe, but there's nothing wrong with adding or tweaking the ingredients to your own whim. You know, my boy Remy's still a chef if you add an extra clove of garlic to your Weetabix. My boy Coda is still an artist if you add lampposts to his work. Maybe it's not adding ingredients where there weren't before, but rather noticing flavors that the original didn't intend to be noticed or whatever, something like that. It just stop thinking so much, just go to bed. No one I think is in my tree, I mean it must be high or low. It's one of my dad's favorite lyrics from Strawberry Fields Forever by the Beatles. And it basically means that no one's on your frequency, no one's on my frequency. Everyone experiences things just a little bit different, but they are still all valid, you know? We can't make each other share the same experience, but that also means that we can't invalidate anyone's experience. Some things just inherently do not have an explanation, and that's cool. That's great, actually, because it lets the hamster wheels in our own minds come up with these meanings and inject our own lives into it, our own experiences, and make it mean something to us personally. There are lampposts everywhere for those with the eyes to see. This is why I know this AI shit will never overtake human creation. You know, AI looks for logic, for patterns, for consistency and coherency, whereas human beings are rarely logic and rarely coherent. AI pursues perfection and efficiency and could never replicate something like Coda's games because those aren't pursuits of the human mind in creativity. Some information blender could never replicate the beautiful nonsense of the human mind. Creativity is a wonderful thing, and we're often kind of brainwashed into thinking that it should be relegated to childhood or the marketing department of a startup that's selling shoes that warm your eggs up for you. Call them ink shoe baiters. Sell them shits on Etsy, make 1 million simoleons. When we do pursue these creative endeavors, we're then encouraged to make them lucrative in some way or another. You know, find a way to make profit off it, or the world will tell you that it's a waste of time. But you know what I miss a hell of a lot nowadays? Being in college, studying music, having a jam every week with my mates and getting to go on stage and play a couple of songs, you know? I'll admit, in my first couple of years in studying it, I thought I was gonna be the next Taylor, you know, I was gonna be the next Ed, zooming around the world, having jams with artists worldwide and having stadiums packed out and whatever. But I think somewhere along the line, probably after talking with a pretty well-recognized globally band that's been a family friend for as long as I can remember, about their lives and about the whole experience of being a recognized artist, I guess that kind of took a back step when I realized the reality of it, and it may not have been something that I wanted, but I still enjoyed college so much. And in fact, maybe after that realization, I might have enjoyed it even more. Maybe the allure of the whole thing was just having a good time, being on stage, not giving a fuck. It wasn't about pursuing record deals and record-breaking sales and private jets and big giant audiences that were waiting for me to give them something that they wanted. Maybe that was never the allure. I chatted to a good friend about this who was 1 year ahead of me on the course, and he straight away was like, oh yeah, no, I've known I don't want to be a career musician for a long time. I want to be a chef. You know, he's known it for most of the time that he's been on the course. And I think this conversation that I had with him about pursuing education while not necessarily pursuing a career, an entire life out of the thing that you're educating yourself on, really did change my perception of why I was there in college. And it lifted the weight off my shoulders a little bit of the whole process of getting this diploma. Maybe the most appealing, the most alluring thing about it was sharing this creative outlet with other creative people who really just wanted to be there and wanted to be on stage. You know, it wasn't about worrying about the financial side of it. I know quite a few of the people I went to college with are watching this video now, so I love you and I miss you deeply. So when I shed this requirement of the studying needing to lead to a lucrative career where I was buying mansions and yachts, and when I instead focused on it just being a creative outlet, I was a lot happier, and funny enough, I got better at the craft. Quick heartfelt message before the inevitable one towards the end of the video. If you have the chance, go and pursue education on something just for the fuck of it, not to make a career out of it, absolutely, you know? If you have the opportunity, and if you live in my lovely country, thankfully you do, or you should, I don't want to make generalizations, you know, go and pursue that. Go and learn something because you want to learn about it. Don't do it just because it needs to make money, or worse off, don't not do it because you don't think you can make money off of it. Not everything has to be in the service of dollar bills. If you're not from my country, if you're in a place where those opportunities are less available, then I am truly sorry, and it is a crime that that's the case. But we are also in the golden age of information. It has never been easier to learn about things. The thing that you are watching this motherfucker who's built like Baymax talk about a video game on, that device in your hands or in front of your eyes has near enough all of the information of human history. If you want to go learn about something, please do it just because you can, just because you're alive. At this moment in script writing, I was thinking to myself, Dan, get to the point, you know, just stop fucking about, stop talking about college or whatever. I had a big notes file in my phone, I do for every video, of, you know, it's kind of like bullet points that I wanted to talk about, and I haven't hit many of them yet, and I'm reaching my word count target. Well, that's what it said. I shot way past my word count target. But this does bring up another important point about creativity. Stick with me, I promise we're going back to Davey and Coda. It's fucking boiling in this room, mind. It's like a Sunday afternoon. They close in about an hour, but I thought I'd just sneak in when it's least likely that there's a lecture on and someone's going to come through the door. Okay, good. Making sure I'm not in a sitcom or some shit. Right up until that most recent video, It sounds bad, but I've not really looked at the scripts of things that carefully. You know, as long as they've got to the point and said what I wanted to say and got a chuckle out of you along the way, I'm calm, I'm chilling, you know? If it's a bit bloated, whatever. If it doesn't spark revolution in the heart of the viewer, that's fine. But now that there's quite a few more eyes on the channel, you know, it's gone something like 7 times the size that it was before that video came out, there's suddenly this additional pressure to make things as airtight and as perfect as possible. And that just adds a weight to the creativity that I thought I just fucking burned off, man. Come on. I really don't think perfection or the pursuit of perfection should even be in the wheelhouse. I thought that Firewatch video was all right. It was fine. It was a fun romp. But then I had some comments, people saying like, oh, they've reconsidered how they're dealing with their life situation right now, and suddenly that's quite scary. You know, I am so beyond honored that you had that sort of reaction to the video, and I honestly can't believe that something I made has done that for some people. But it's engaged this kind of fear, and now there's this concerning requirement to keep one-upping myself, to keep delivering these gut punches or whatever, and keep trying to inspire rather than just maintaining the level and letting the hills and valleys grow where they may. You know, this channel has always been just talking about the things that I enjoy and love. Even that 60-second review series, which is now moving over to shorts, if you're wondering where they're going, working on some at the moment. But if you go back and notice, none of them are particularly negative. I've played plenty of games that I don't like, but when it comes to writing reviews on stuff, I've written a few that I didn't like, but most of them just go in the bin as soon as they're finished and written, even if they are quality scripts, because I don't enjoy talking about the negative stuff, you know? This should be about having fun. I'm not saying YouTube isn't a place for like reviews and critique or anything like that. There's plenty of it. I just don't want to do it myself, you know? There's plenty in the pile. I don't need to add to it. It makes me sad. It gives me the bad feelings. So there's this obligation coming in again, not to call myself an artist. I think that's a title that's earned, and I don't really feel comfortable calling myself, at least at this point in time. But there's this obligation to keep delivering at a pace, keep providing these emotional feelings, and also, you know, sticking to a kind of schedule, continuously delivering for you. I'm thinking like 4 or 5 videos ahead. And that's just as much for me as it is for an audience. To keep creating, keep getting more subs and more views and maximize the potential of the video, but why? Why? I've been doing this for years with no intention of getting views or getting subs, you know? The peak of marketing for me is a single tweet from my own Twitter account. It's never been about popularity. The fact that people are asking for more now and looking forward to the next thing is kind of scary. It's never been the case for the whole time that I've been doing this. There's been no requirement. There's also been no intention of throwing in the towel, of not making another thing. I've always been excited to make the next thing, but now there's also this kind of feeling of obligation alongside it. And I do feel a slight sense of duty now to keep creating for the people that are here, you know, to keep you entertained and keep you happy. And make no mistake, for 99% of my entire being is very, very excited and honored that you are here. Like you in particular. I can't believe it. It's incredible. It warms my heart like nothing. But I know that there are careful treads to take, you know, learning from Coda and Davey and how Coda and Davey interacted with each other and how that relationship kind of unfurled. The things that Coda created and shared with Davey had this profound effect on him and changed his mindset, or at least gave him a lot to think about. You know, and there's positive and negative effects to this, of course, mostly focused on the negative, but, you know, there is some positive in there as well. I think the time when Coda sent Davey a folder with 100 games that are all just the same game and he tried all of them, that's quite funny, you know, that's quite cool. And it represents Coda's mindset on the creative journey, how it goes from mind to keyboard to screen, whether it has objective meaning and intention or not. But then came that expectation from Davey. He kept seeing himself in these games and thus kind of built up this expectation for Coda to keep creating more, even if it was like a personal thing for Davey. If he in somewhere in his head seemingly thought that Coda was making these games for him. So there was this expectation and perhaps a bit of entitlement going on there. And the idea of Coda stopping creating games is so daunting, so terrifying to Davey, that he would disrespect Coda all over again by doing the thing that drove him away in the first place, just in an attempt to beg him to keep creating. And with this expectation and this desperation from Davey came a resentment from Coda towards him. Coda feels physically sick when he's around Davey. Imagine having someone or multiple someones waiting for your next piece of content, like seagulls waiting for chips on the beach, and you just don't want to do it, and you feel this resentment towards them. Like, oh my God, that's horrible. The last thing you would want is to resent any of these people. I don't feel an ounce of that, by the way. I'm always chuffed to see you people watching my videos, my little seagulls. See? No sarcasm. This turns creativity into a prison, something you're shackled to, forced to keep creating whether you want to or not until you are ruined inside. The difference in mindset between Coda and Davey is so palpable right from the beginning, but it doesn't feel much more evident than in the case of the door puzzle. Davey considers this something of an anchor for Coda, like the lamppost would be had they been a true part of the games. From Coda's side though, and I may be injecting meaning in the way that Coda so deeply hates, but it feels evident, the doors represent something more. They seem to represent the creative process for him, and how, even though it's confusing and silly, it's fun. Look back to the talking heads bit. At first, the jury of people are demanding to know how to get through it, how to solve it and move on. When you come around again, the other jury already know how to solve the puzzle, and they've come to the conclusion that the space in between is much better, it's more interesting. It's as if to say that the process of something is a lot of fun, not the outcome. Those who can't break through the process, who can't realize their work, will drive themselves crazy trying to solve the problem. Those who can get through are far less worried about being in the space in between. They're just enjoying the journey. Then we go back to Davey, and he's saying that you can't stay in the space between for too long. It's not healthy. Is this genuine concern for a friend, or is it that he doesn't want Coda to stay in that space for too long because it means going more time without receiving and experiencing Coda's creations? It's no surprise Coda feels sick around Davey, because at that point he represents the worst part of the creative process and serves as a reminder of those parts. The resentment he feels for Davey, he feels for the whole creative process. And it's more likely come to this because of the added expectation of reaction from any game he makes. He's no longer making them for himself because he knows Davey's going to get his grubby mitts on him. Your only option would be to either cut off this person or these people, starve them of this brain food source until they go looking for other watering holes, or stop your creative activities. Coda bounced back and forth between these two choices, kind of sitting in the middle ground before ultimately deciding to remove Davey from his life. And while I really do feel for Davey and totally get where he's coming from and how he felt, Coda did nothing wrong. Coda is not obligated to keep Davey in his life because Davey has this appreciation and admiration for his art. That feeling of obligation, as previously mentioned, is a lose-lose situation. The only healthy thing to do for both sides, for Coda and Davey, is to break that link. There are a million ways to do creativity right, but there are very few ways to do creativity wrong. And one of those wrong ways is to do it solely for other people. Creativity is a lonely and selfish act. Fuck it, the Big Bang happened because the universe was bored. The asteroid came to Earth because God was like, why'd I put dinosaurs on that shit? If you're not putting your own thoughts and passions and emotions into the things that you make, and you're primarily thinking of the reception when you're creating something, it's not going to fulfill you, and then ultimately it's not going to fulfill an audience either. No number will be enough. It'll need to keep going higher and higher. The Steam trailer for this game is really, really cool because it gives pretty much nothing away about the story of the game itself. It leaves you going in blind. But it does provide a bit of the vibe and the feeling of the game. It draws you into the game while leaving you very, very fresh when you do start playing it, which is increasingly rare nowadays with trailers. Trailers for games and shows and movies and stuff, they just want to give everything away straight away, and it's a pain in the ass, and trailers are just getting so annoying nowadays. Why is a trailer 3 minutes long? I could make a video on this topic just alone. No, that's getting too close to Naked Jakey territory. I'm getting pretty close already. I might clip a wing mirror on that one. It just asks you to look at a few of Coda's games. It gives you a few tiny little clips of a couple of the games that you see in the beginner's guide, and it asks you to paint a mental picture of what you think this artist looks like. That's quite an interesting conversation starter, It just gets your brain going a little bit, and it draws you in to want to play the beginner's guide. It makes you want to play it even just to understand Coda a little bit more, or to have your curiosity satiated about what Coda actually looks like. But the reality is, these games may not paint a picture of Coda at all. Who he is as an actual person, not a creator or whatever. There is that divide there between his work and him. You know, maybe there's a total separation between him and The Great and Lovely Descent, for example. Maybe it's just a matter of him having a thought and wanting to get that thought out of his head into this creative expression, just like a painter with a canvas. And that could be for no other reason than because I wanted to, you know? Creatives are so cool. I wish Donald Glover was real. And yet, from the start, both Davey and ourselves as the player seek meaning in all of it. Maybe not just because we expect meaning from our games and from our art, from our media, but because we need it, we crave it. We want to see ourselves in the things that we create, or we want to understand ourselves a little bit better. That festival that I was putting on, it was a collaboration between Wales and Jamaica. We were trying to educate people about Jamaican history and Jamaican culture, past, you know, just Bud and everything. And one of the last meetings that took place before that festival happened was with us, our team, meeting the team that we'd brought over from Jamaica, the Rastafari Indigenous Village. And as they were introducing themselves, you know, they were telling us all their names, and all of their names had meaning. And one of the guys, after he introduced himself, he said something that felt kind of like a throwaway line, but it did stick in my head a bit. And he just said that life, the journey of life is introducing yourself to yourself, getting to know yourself. We spend our whole lives trying to understand ourselves, trying to learn who we are and be more connected to everything, whether we realize it or not. But we simply can't rely on other people's creations alone to make us feel that. As I said before, inspiration is great, but reliance is a road filled with pain and Legos and needles and your PE teacher calling you a fat cunt. I'm sorry, sis, stop throwing dodgeballs at me. It doesn't help the creative or the creator. If you're still watching this video at this point, you're more than likely a creative of some kind, or you look up to creative people, which means that you're almost definitely a creative. Go try it. Pick up a paintbrush, whatever that paintbrush looks like to you. And so maybe you feel like there's this requirement attached to everything that you have created or might create, whether it's to share it, to sell it, to inject it with meaning, whatever, but none of these things are real. If you want to inject it with meaning, that's fantastic, that's beautiful. If you have something to say, that's great. But if all you want to do is chuck paint around on a canvas and see what comes out of it, that is no less valid. If it only means something to you, then it's already so worth any time and any effort that it took to create it. Take a leaf from Coda. Don't worry about playability, about market appeal, whatever. Just get that thought that's out of your head and get it into the canvas or into the exe file, whatever shape it takes. I promise you'll feel better. Do be careful with who you share it with, you know. As mentioned, the Coda Dave experience. If meaning is only there for you, then that's great, that's enough. But if you do want to share it with the whole world, feel free. If you do feel like showing things to the world, then do it openly. Let them take it in, let them experience it in their own way, and let them feel their different ways about it. Whether they like it or not, they will feel something from something that you created. There's a beautiful Dave Grohl quote I really like. That's the great thing about music. You can sing something to 85,000 people and they'll sing it back to you for 85,000 different reasons. Yeah, it's something along those lines. It's the same with games, paintings, whatever the fuck, creation. And on the other side of the creation, to the consumers, to those who see themselves in works of art or media. Please remember to keep some distance and rely on yourself before you rely on anyone else. Also, take a leaf from Davy's book and take things for what they are, not for what they aren't. You know, you're not going to get in trouble for not dissecting everything you love. If that's how you enjoy things, great, whatever. But I promise, you're not going to get in trouble for just focusing on the things that make you happy. Did you know cynicism is medically recognized as bad for your health? Genuine, it's linked to, I think it's like heart disease, depression, anxiety. It doesn't just make you annoying to be around, to always be the cynic. It literally makes you less healthy, meaning that keeping the positives in your mind wherever you can makes you not only a happier and kinder person, but a healthier person. Every aspect of your life improves when you start approaching things with an open heart. It might take some time to get there, to get to that point. That's all right. Go easy on yourself. You've You've literally got your whole life to figure this out. Moral of the story, please just start creating for the fuck of it. Not for fame, not for money. That way lies an empty soul. Do it because there's sometimes a voice inside of your head telling you to do so. That's the voice of your spirit. And if you neglect that spirit, it dies and you slowly die with it. It's like your soul. You take care of it and it takes care of you. Having this urge to create is a message from your heart to your brain that if you have any desire to put these things into the world, then you do have an obligation to fulfill. To your heart and mind, but to no one else. This is the obligation of an artist. That if your soul wishes to sing, you open the windows. You let the sound travel and be damned whatever ears hear it. It only matters that you did. And just as importantly, be damned who understood the words. It only matters that you did. If and when they need to understand them, they will. Okay, I won't take up too much time this time. I spent a very long time in the comments of that last video and it just speaks for itself. But I'm so thankful and so happy that you guys liked that video. It really does mean the world. I'm no more responsible for its success than the YouTube algorithm gods mainlining a Red Bull straight into the recommendation column. You know, the views stop starting to mean anything after like a few thousand. It just becomes a bit of a blur. But what does matter is the reception, the response that you had to it, and you know the feelings that you felt from it. That is insane. I'm buzzing that it touched some of you in these unexpected ways and you got these things from it, because I had a great time making it. You know, shoving that fucker full of the background skits and the jokes and stuff. That was great fun. I honestly thought it was just an okay to decent video, but if you really did enjoy it like that, then that's fucking biblical. It's the first time I've been in front of the camera in a big way for the channel since I was like 12 and we opened it, me and my cousins. So, you know, it was pretty daunting, but it's paid off so well, you know. I got called handsome. It's no big deal. I might have printed off the comment, but it's whatever. Hi. I filmed the stuff that you just saw like a month ago. It's just kind of been sat on my hard drive for a little while because something kind of weird happened when I started the editing process for this video, and it's that I suddenly and passionately hated this video. I don't know if it's because Vegas Pro kept crashing. By the way, Vegas Pro is going to give me a coronary long before the fucking cheeseburgers do, I'll tell you that. I've been using pirated Vegas Pro for about 10 years, at least, maybe a little bit longer, I'll be totally honest with you. But then coming into like adult money and working full time a couple of years ago, I then bought a proper license for Pro 19, and I'll tell you what, in that year or two since owning it, I've had more crashes and issues than the 10 years previous that I was using a pirated copy. What the fuck's going on, Magix? So yeah, I've been holding some deep resentment and hate towards this video for reasons I couldn't really quantify in my own mind, but I've got a theory, and I think it's that I know that this video, I've known from the writing process that it's not going to be as appealing or successful or even like funny and gripping as the last video, the Firewatch one. You know, especially after the reception that got and the algorithm shot it into the stratosphere. I know that this one's not going to do nearly the numbers that one did. But I guess somewhere in my mind I was annoyed at that fact, and I was like just expecting failure or whatever, and then I was going like, oh, this video is pointless, you know, it's just rambling, just talking about yourself. Oh god, what's the point of this video? But that's never been the case before, and I just had to look back at the script and go, oh, I'm doing exactly the thing that I'm saying is stupid all along in this video. The more observant among you might have noticed that the quality of this video, particularly in the first part of the video, is dog shit. I'm thankful to say that that is a problem of the past. Bear with me. I have little impulse control, I'll be totally honest with you. So I bought a spanky camera. There she is. There's my darling. We've got ourselves an A6700 from Sony. It's a sexy beast, I'll be honest with you. I haven't had much of a chance to play around with it, but the next video I'm very excited to make, especially because I've got this camera now. If I don't get arrested, I'm hoping to film some of it in an abandoned hospital/asylum, which will be really cool, but we'll see what happens. I'm literally going to be paying this thing off for the next 2 years, so not the brightest impulse buy. Sorry if I missed your comment on the last one as well. I tried to respond to all of them, but I think I did miss a few. You know, it got a bit tough to follow. Next video coming your way has been in the background of my mind for years now. It's had its own notes page in my phone for a very long time. But it was originally going to be in the place of this video, but I thought it would be better to shift the schedule around a bit and deliver it to you on September 26th, also known as Outbreak Day, because we're going to be talking about when my dad played The Last of Us. Writing is well underway, filming is planned, got some locations in mind, some really, really cool ones. But as for what comes after that, call me Natasha Bedingfield, because the rest is still unwritten. There's a lot of things I can choose from, there's plenty in the pipeline. I just don't know what exactly is coming next. I've also finally broken free of my contract with Sky Broadband, and I'm moving over to the whimsical lands of Virgin Broadband, which means that I'm moving from 35 megabytes a second to 250 megabytes a second for the same price. I'm not sponsored by Sky or Virgin. I fucking hate dealing with ISPs. This means I can download games quicker, but it also unlocks a potential new skill tree for me to climb. Streaming. I've been playing around with the idea for ages. I've got all the tools and the gear there ready. I've got a stream-ready microphone, I've got the camera, I've got OBS set up and everything. I could hit the button and go live tomorrow if Jarl Ragnar deemed it to be, but let me know if you guys would be down for that ride. I've just recently started Darkwood. I got like half hour into that. That seems pretty cool. I've got Still Wakes the Deep downloaded and ready to start. I haven't started that yet. Or could even just do more like laid-back stuff that I have played previously. Let's just play some Halo 3 SWAT together or whatever. Just let me know if you'd like to see that, because I'd be well up for it. All right, I'm gonna go take my couple of days mandatory pencils downtime and get working on that next video for you. No, that's a lie. I'm gonna replay Dark Souls 3. I miss my wife and my dog. Thank you personally very much for watching, and remember folks, cauliflower is technically a man-made vegetable. Fuck me, bro. Oh, nah. What's he?
Stop, because no man else is wet.